Beste patiënten, begeleiders en vrijwilligers. Het doet mij ontzettend veel plezier om jullie met zoveel samen te zien. Ik verwelkom niet alleen de pals en hun begeleiders die het hele weekend hier met ons verblijven, maar zeker ook zij die speciaal voor deze wetenschappelijke sessie deze vanmiddag aansluiten. Het toont aan dat er veel interesse bestaat in het wetenschappelijk onderzoek naar een afdoende therapie voor ALS en naar de inspanningen van de medische wereld om pals zo goed mogelijk zorgen te verlenen. The focus of this session is the potential use of medicinal cannabis to elevate ALS symptoms. For clarity, I have to state that in contrast to MS, medicinal cannabis is not yet legalized in Belgium for ALS. Professor Marcus Weber of the ALS clinic in St. Gallen, Swiss, will tell us about cannabis in ALS. Thereafter, Professor Christian Lunetta of the Neuromuscular Omni Center in Milan, Italy, will present his clinical trial with cannabis and pain in ALS. Zoals jullie wellicht weten, volgen wij binnen de ALS-Liga het biomedisch en klinisch onderzoek naar ALS van nabij op. Deze sessie is dan ook de ideale gelegenheid om jullie begrijpelijk een stand van zaken hierover te geven. Die wordt verzorgd door Dr. Angeli en mezelf. We welcome Professor Marcus Weber from Swiss and Professor Christian Lunetta from Italy, who will present us their experience. I thank you for coming all the way to Middelpunt to talk and listen to our patients. Graag geef ik nu het woord aan onze eerste spreker, Marcus. The floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everybody. I would like to thank Evie and the President for inviting me to this beautiful place here. It's a real pleasure to be here and to talk about the medical need for cannabis in ALS. The monastery is behind the cathedral, and this is the world-famous Baroque library. In this library we find over 1,000 handwritten books which are older than 1,000 years. I'm pretty sure the monks in those days, they didn't know anything about ALS. But they were very knowledgeable about plants and their medical use, and perhaps even about hemp and cannabis. So the question here is cannabis and marijuana medicine, or is it just for recreational use and to make a few people happy? Well, my first, and as a matter of fact, we have a system in our body that reacts to cannabinoids. And this system, all of you have it, I have it too. And this system is not unique to humans. We find it in all species, in monkeys, even in fish, which means that the so-called endocannabinoid system has been preserved through evolution. So there must be something to it. And so far, there have been two receptors which have been identified. One is the cannabinoid type 1 receptor, CB1. And this receptor is mostly located in the brain. And then we have another receptor called cannabinoid type 2, CB2. And this receptor is mainly located in the periphery, in the blood cells, in the liver, and other organs. And just to re-emphasize that, this is a hair, even in the hair follicles. We do have cannabinoid receptors. So the system is already there, and the question is, can we make use of this endogenous system which all of us have? When we talk about cannabis, we need to be aware this is the plant, sativa. It contains over 60 different cannabinoids. So there is not a single substance, there are many, many different substances. And the two main substances we find in cannabis is tetrahydrocannabinol. This was isolated in 1964, and it's psychotropic. Now, THC makes us happy, it makes us sleepy, and sometimes it makes us dizzy. On the other hand, cannabidiol, CBD, is not psychotropic. In fact, to some degree, it antagonizes the bad effects of THC, which means if you have a combination of both THC plus CBD, we can take more of the medication to alleviate symptoms. And this is exactly what the GW Pharmaceuticals has done. They have combined THC, CBD, and this medication is called Sativex. And just to give you another example, how many different actions these cannabinoids do. What you see here in blue is cannabidiol. And for instance, anxiolytic, antipsychotic, anti-epileptic, anti-proliferative, anti-cancer, bone stimulator, anti-inflammatory. There are so many different actions which can be induced by these cannabinoids, so that we actually should use this for medical purposes. So it is not surprising that many patients actually take cannabinoids. And if you go back to the literature, we find that almost 40% of patients with multiple sclerosis take cannabinoids, mainly for spasticity. Now this study was when we didn't have Sativex. Epilepsy. 1/3 of patients with epilepsy take cannabinoids. And a survey in ALS, which dates back to 2004, found that 10% of ALS patients also take cannabinoids, and they claim that it was effective at reducing appetite loss, depression, spasticity, cramps, and drooling. I'm not going to talk about spasticity. Professor Lunetta will cover this topic later on, and I will only briefly touch pain. But I'm going to come back to cramps, drooling, and appetite loss. The fasciculations and the cramps will disappear. Well, let's see, is there any treatment for cramps in ALS? And we performed a review of the literature, and not very surprising, there was no medication for ALS cramps. So we thought, why should we try to use cannabinoids for the treatment of cramps in ALS? We performed a trial, a randomized crossover trial. In the crossover design, the patient starts taking the drug, stops, and then takes placebo. And these are the 12 patients who started with the real drug. And I'm going to explain this to you. The red bar marks the onset of THC intake. The green bar marks the time when he stopped taking THC. And then there's a washout period and the placebo phase. Now, can you push the button for me for a second? And in some patients, we saw exactly what we expected. This patient here. You see, he had bad cramps, took cannabis, cramps came down, he stopped taking cannabis, cramps came back. Same this patient here. The red bar, he started taking cannabinoids, cramps came down, he stopped, cramps came back. But then, we had other patients. They took the cannabis, cramps came down, but they never came back. And the various studies which have been conducted with cannabinoids, we see exactly this problem. There are many, many negative trials, and I'm happy that we have, later on we will hear about a positive trial. We have this carryover effect. There's a high placebo effect, for instance, in pain studies, 70% with pain will also respond to the placebo. the studies are underpowered. There's a high risk of bias. Not everyone is willing to take cannabinoids. So you get a certain group of people who are willing to embark on the study. We have subjective outcome measures. The patients are asked, how severe are your cramps on a scale from 0 to 10. This is nothing which we can measure, and there are always some fluctuations. Unmasking is a problem, because we have the well-known side effects. Quite often patients experience side effects, and they will realize when they are on the real drug and when they take the placebo. And this is going to affect your outcome. And of course, we have many different formulations, and this makes a comparative analysis of all these studies almost impossible. We also looked how well do our ALS patients tolerate THC. So we asked them to take a single dose with 5 milligrams, and then we waited for a while, and a week later we asked them to take 10 milligrams, a single dose, pure THC. And what you see here on the left side is the 5 milligram dose, and you see the major side effects. Sleepiness, almost no problem. There was a single person who complained about sleepiness. Euphoria, 2 patients. Drowsiness, only 1. And dry mouth were 3. So all over, a single dose of 5 milligrams THC is well tolerated. So coming to the symptoms, pain. Pain, we will hear later about, is also a common symptom in ALS. Most of the studies have been conducted with neuropathic pain. The pain in ALS might be a little bit different. And also what you see, THC, CBD in the middle, in a relation 1-to-1. So this is the Sativex combination. But almost all of these studies, and this is summarized in this plot, you see the line. Whenever the square is on the right side, it is a positive study and it favors the real medication. If it is on the left side, it favors placebo. You can look at all these studies. All the studies showed that cannabinoids work in pain. They have at least a 30% reduction in pain. And whoever has had pain knows 30% for patients with pain is a lot. Another issue is weight loss and the prognosis. And you know, this is a so-called survival curve. Malnourished patients have a bad prognosis. They die much faster than normally nourished patients. So we should care about nutritional status of our patients. And of course, it is a weight loss in ALS is complex. We have hypermetabolism. ALS patients just need more food intake. We have the problem of dysphagia, the swallowing problem. And then there's also loss of appetite. About 50% of patients complain about loss of appetite. And when I ask my patients, do you still enjoy food? Many will tell me no. And I also ask them, a glass of wine, does the glass of wine still have the same flavor? Does it give you the same pleasure? No, it doesn't. This is loss of appetite. And we know that the cannabinoids also modulate our appetite hormones. There are 2 hormones which make you feel hungry and which give you the pleasure when you eat, leptin and ghrelin. But also here, most of the studies have been performed in HIV, AIDS, and in cancer patients. A single study in Alzheimer's disease, but in all the studies they could show that with cannabinoids your appetite improves and the patients gain weight. What about sleep and insomnia? A very recent study showed that actually 50% of ALS patients have poor sleep. And of course, this is again a multifactorial issue. We have REM sleep disorders, pain, cramps, restless legs. So there are many reasons why ALS patients have an impaired sleep quality. And also, in this condition, there have been several studies in sleep apnea, fibromyalgia, post-traumatic stress disorder, nightmares, and consistently the cannabinoids improve the quality of sleep. Another question is, and now I'm leaving symptom control, is there a place for cannabinoids in neurodegeneration? Now I'm talking about, can we target the disease process with cannabinoids? And I told you there are many different pathways which go wrong in ALS. Glutamate toxicity, inflammation, we have reactive oxygen species. Each cell that works makes toxic products, and the cell has to get rid of these toxic products. These are all pathways which can be targeted by cannabinoids. So the question is there a place for cannabinoids to treat diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Huntington, ALS, and Parkinson's disease? And as a matter of fact, if we look at disease models in mice or in other models, what we find is, for instance, in Huntington's disease, stimulating the cannabinoid type 2 receptors exerts profound neuroprotective effects. The same in Parkinson's disease. We have symptom relieving effects, but also neuroprotection. And here, in stroke, very similar. So let's come back to ALS and have a closer look at the pathways in ALS. And what you see here is the up motor neuron, this is the low motor neuron, and probably you have heard about excitotoxicity. This is one key event in ALS. Another key event, but there are many others, is inflammation. And this is the glial cell. So the question, and both of these pathways are under control of cannabinoid receptors. So again, the question is, can we target this? And this is a list of cannabinoid studies in ALS mice. All of them showed the prolonged survival profoundly. One of the most interesting studies was the study which selective cannabinoid type 2 receptor stimulation. Why is that? Usually in a lab, the mice are treated from birth or very, very early on in the disease. But that's not the situation we are facing in our office. We start to treat our patients when they have symptoms. Now, and this study started to treat the mice when they were symptomatic, when they experienced weakness. And what you see here, that's again a survival curve. These are the untreated mice, a low dosage, and these are the mice, if you treat them, if you stimulate the cannabinoid type 2 receptor. So, starting with treatment at symptom onset. So, exactly the same situation as we have with our patients. And the researchers also looked at the spinal cord of these mice. And what you see here, this is the concentration of cannabinoid type 2 receptor, 60 days, 100 days, and 120 days. And what you see, as the disease progresses, in the spinal cord of the mice are more and more cannabinoid type 2 receptors. This looks almost like an auto-defense mechanism. And as we know from the other studies, stimulating this type 2 receptor slows down the disease. So we said, well, is there a chance, before we do a study in our patients, can we show that in human ALS, the cannabinoid type 2 receptor is also upregulated in the disease course? Now, how can you do this in a patient? It's quite difficult. You know, in the mice, they had sections of the spinal cord. So the question is, can we, for instance, do imaging and show cannabinoid type 2 receptors? Yes. Now we can do imaging methods. It's called a PET scan, where you inject a specific medication, a ligand, which only reacts with the specific receptor. But so far, such a ligand hasn't been around. So I walked to my colleagues at the ETH in Zurich and asked them, would you actually develop such a ligand for us to show that we see the same upregulation in ALS patients? And we did some studies, and what you see here are spinal cord sections of ALS patients. We have the cervical level, the thoracic, and the lumbar. And all the red dots here is CB2 receptor in the spinal cord. This is not imaging yet. It's just the potential ligand, but it shows you the evidence is at least here, and this is with high magnification. Everything was what you see on the left side, the red dots. This is cannabinoid type 2 receptor in the spinal cord of ALS patients. So it seems that in human ALS we see exactly the same, an upregulation, and it would make a lot of sense to stimulate this receptor. I told you in the beginning, under normal conditions, we do not have CB2 receptors in our brain and in our spinal cord. So this is something which happens through the disease process, and again, as I said, it seems that the nervous system tries to protect itself by building these receptors in the spinal cord. So the question is, once we can show this in the disease course, whether we should perform a trial to change the disease course in ALS. So, summary, we have the endocannabinoid system. It's an endogenous system. Everyone has it. For symptom control in ALS, we have only 2 studies. I showed you one. We have no studies on weight loss, appetite, salivation, pain, and no, we do have the pain studies, which we'll present afterwards. We have good evidence for effectiveness in other diseases, pain. Sativex is licensed in Canada for pain. We will hear more about the pain from Professor Lunetta. Appetite, weight loss, sleep, and also in spasticity. Sativex, by the way, is now licensed in more than 30 countries for treatment of spasticity. And as I just showed you, we do have promising results in terms of neuroprotection for cannabis and ALS. So, I'm happy to answer questions.
I now give the floor to Professor Christian Lunetta. Christian?
Proud to be here because it's beautiful to see this pulse participation in attending in meetings. And the problem of the management of symptoms in ALS is the real challenge in all hospital, all center, because the absence of a real drug that stops the disease and or slow down the disease progression improve the ability to and the probability to develop a lot of symptoms. And in some cases, these symptoms are related to are specific for ALS, but in other cases are related to the, for example, also motor function. And the pain is one of these symptoms. I remember that when we studied the definition of ALS, and the same way we explained the ALS for patients, we describe the disease as only a motor neuron disease with only motor neuron symptoms and also let's say motor function. Okay. But during the course of the disease, in most of cases, these symptoms could be more severe to complain compared to the loss of motor function. And in most of cases, a lot of patients use opiates to manage the severity of the pain. But in some cases, the pain is the sum of different reasons. And consider that regarding the previous question about the loss of effect of the THC in the pain. Yes, the pain is a universe of problems. And for this, it is impossible to define a single treatment to have the best answer in all patients. And we start with this beautiful review of an Italian colleague that you know, Adriano Chio, that was because he for the first time performed a population-based analysis to really evaluate the incidence of these symptoms in ALS. And you can see there is a very big range of percentage reported in different studies. But this is not related because there are ALS patients without pain or other patients that are pain. The problem could be related to for example, the design of the study, the setting of the study, or the measure to evaluate the pain. And in another cases, the small number of patients studied about this problem. In this study, the topic was the pain. And the researcher asked to evaluate the incidence of the pain. And the percentage was almost 57%. And this is, I think, that could be the real incidence of this problem in the history of ALS. And the study showed other two information, that the incidence, the presence of pain is correlated with the loss of function and with the disease duration. And for this, the study that evaluate only patients in early phases could explain only few percentage of this problem. But if you can see study that follow the patients for a long time, the percentage of pain increase, and in some cases reach 80–90% of patients. Another problem is the way to measure this problem. How many patients I changed it to the question. How many centers use a specific scale to evaluate the pain in ALS patients? Do you perform, when you perform the visit, do you perform a specific evaluation for pain? In most of cases, no. Most of cases is a question during the visit, do you have pain? But without a specific evaluation of the frequency and of the severity of pain. It's different to have a severe degree of pain or a mild degree of pain or episodic pain or chronic pain. And these symptoms need to have a very, very specific evaluation. And it's not difficult to perform. For example, we use this kind of scale. It's more easy. Is useful also for example, children. That the level of pain is related, for example, to the type of faces. And this is one of the instruments that could be used, and that could help the physician to really evaluate these symptoms in ALS and to really evaluate the effect of his prescription, drug prescription for the symptoms. Another aspect is for example, this neurophysiologic study showed that in a significant number of patients there is an alteration in neurophysiologic parameters about the sensory system. Marcus is a neurophysiologist, and in his experience, for example, in the somatosensory emotive potential is frequent to find alteration in ALS patients. And the same, for example, for the sensory nerve. And for this, we can consider ALS not only a motor disease, but could be a disease in which there are different areas of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system that are involved, and these could be one of the sources that induce the pain, in particular the neuropathic pain, that is a pain, for example, the burning, in particular in feet or the itching, another symptoms that is included in the family of pain. And now we will try to explain our experience with the cannabis. The cannabis in Italy is after the battle of some association related to the other disease. Italy is legal, and with the prescription it is possible to buy in the apotheke the cannabinoids, or for statics, for example, it's possible to obtain the drug with a procedure, a named patient procedure that is included in the compassionate use procedure. The study included 4 centers in Italy, all centers in the north part of Italy. The study drug was the Sativex, that is a combination of 2 drugs, the THC and CBD, and this combination could be more useful compared to the single drug, because the effect of the 2 drugs are different, and in some cases the combination can improve the answer in specific symptoms. And the other aspect is the kind of study design. We performed a first period in which the patients were divided into two groups. The first group received the real drug, the Sativex, and the other group received the placebo, but the bottle was the same, and both patients and physician were blind to the drug. After this, in particular, the treatment period was included two phases. The first phase of 14 days, in which the dosage was increased, reaching the maximum dosage was 6 price in the morning and 6 price in the evening, and or in case of side effect, the maximum dosage tolerated by the patient. In the second phase of the treatment period, the patients maintain the same dosage during 28 days. After this first period, all patients, we asked if they were able to continue the treatment. And was very wonderful that all patients chose to continue the treatment, and in this second phase, all patients received the drug. It was an open label phase of the study. And the same, the duration of the second phase was the same, with the first period of titration and the second period of treatment with the maximum dosage tolerated for each patient. And this time of treatment is important to consider. The primary endpoint was the level of spasticity, and we used a scale that is used in all clinics, and that is the Ashworth scale. All the investigators were trained to perform in the same way and with the same evaluation the scale, to avoid the possible difference in the single sample. And the second endpoint was, for example, to evaluate the effect on pain, appetite, or possibly the safety. As you can see, we included 60 patients with ALS, and almost all patients completed all the two phases, the phase A and phase B. We have only one patient that withdrew the trial because due to the distance with our center, but no patients chose to stop the drug during the first and the second phase. And this is an important aspect to maintain the power of the study, to avoid that the reduction of number of the patients influences the power of the study. And this is the picture that shows the effect on the primary point. As you can see, the score of the spasticity improved. Worsened in patients treated with the placebo, and improved in patients treated with the active farm. Consider that these results include patients of phase A. The meaning is that in 1 month we show a difference in the effect in these symptoms in the two groups. No difference about the level of muscular function, and you can see in these other two graphs. Considering the second endpoint, only one second endpoint was reached, and in particular was the point related to the pain. As you can see, during the treatment period, the level of pain reported in each visit, in each evaluation, induced and was significant at the end of the treatment period, the difference compared to the two groups. Obviously, the frequency of side effect was slightly higher in patients treated with the drug compared to placebo. But the level of the side effect was not so high to decide to stop the drug during the trial. In conclusion, this is the first randomized clinical trial that shows an effect of the combination of THC and CBD on spasticity. It shows a subjective improvement of patients' global change, a subjective reduction of pain, and a trend, a good trend in other secondary endpoints, even if the significance was not reached. But other important aspect is the good safety profile and tolerability, because was one of the main problems to talk with the politician, to talk with the government about this drug, is to underline that use of this drug with a physician evaluation, with a physician prescription, with the physician monitoring of the effect is tolerable, and the safety is very good.
Zo, we gaan het wetenschappelijke gedeelte afronden. Ik hoop dat het van u leerrijk was, dat jullie antwoord gehad hebben op jullie vragen. We richten ons vanaf nu dus op een oproep naar de beleidsmakers. Hopelijk zijn er mensen, want ik heb gezien dat er al een aantal mensen zijn die het product nemen, die misschien eventueel anoniem een getuigenis kunnen schrijven die we mee kunnen includeren in ons dossier voor de beleidsmakers, zodat we sterker in onze schoenen staan, want het is natuurlijk alleen maar door positieve commentaren van mensen die het gebruiken dat we verder gaan geraken. I'd like to address a special thanks to Professor Marcus Weber and Professor Christian Lunetta for having presented your experience and evidence on the use of cannabis. Especially also Christian, maybe not everybody here knows it, but you're a director of the board of UPAS. So I especially want to thank you for your involvement in that and to help me to change European laws and all of those things, and to make sure that every patient in Europe has the same rights. So maybe also something you don't know, we have a slogan in the International Alliance. We see each other 2 times a year, so we continuously work together, and I'm also very proud and happy that they both are here to just join us on this medicinal cannabis meeting. So just to you, Marcus and Christian, together, united in the worldwide fight against ALS-MND. En voor jullie allemaal, de laatste keer, want ik ben deze namiddag weg, samen vechten we als leven. En daarom heb ik voor onze gastsprekers ook onze mascotte met de slogan, Christian, samen vechten als leven. Marcus, thank you very much. En voor diegenen die ons mee gaan verzamelen aan tafel, jullie mogen aanschuiven. Voor de andere mensen die ons gaan verlaten, wens ik jullie nog een prettige dag aan zee of elders. Dankjewel.